Peaks of Yore really caught me by surprise. Games have been getting more and more advanced. Back then, games used to be pretty simple. You would have a dungeon crawler, or a story game, or an open world, or a puzzle game. And then you would get dungeon crawling puzzle games, and then you would get dungeon crawling puzzle open world games, and now we have dungeon crawling puzzle open world story friggin' simulation games. I don't know. And this has created a weird environment where games are now very complex in that there's not really a single base that they come from. And it's why some games really sneak up on me. And Peaks of Yore is my favorite example of this. It's a game that has such a simple idea. You can swing from arm to arm, that's it. And from that it creates one of my favorite games I've played in quite some time. So let's talk about it. The game is entirely built off this one concept of swinging and grabbing onto ledges, and at its core, that's all the game has to offer. But then you can learn you can swing from ledge to ledge, or you can let go to fling yourself, and then there's multiple types of grips, some that can only be held on for periods of time, or others where you start slipping, and coffee that gives you boost, and crampons that I don't actually like that much, but we're going to ignore that. And the game continues to build and build off of the systems again and again. What started off as such a simple mountain climbing adventure has now turned into a massive expedition of hour-long levels that include tons of different obstacles, grips, and different moves that the player has to do to complete the level. It's actually pretty amazing how you can start from such a small idea to escalate into what the rest of Peaks of Yore ends up being later on, as it continues to add and add, making each level consistently more difficult and longer as the player continues through the game. Not to mention the vibe of this game. It's just incredibly relaxing, from the art style to the music, the voice acting, and the characters. The characters also don't just feel glued. They feel like they have a purpose and exist more than just to give you a random piece of exposition, and I really like that. I do feel the game could have done more with side content. I don't hate it, but for the most part it's not really side content. You get rewards from it, and it's almost required to do if you're trying to beat the game. What I mean is more really side content, like maybe you have to get a music disc by doing some random challenge, or by finding some secret or Easter egg. The game does a pretty good job with small details, as I talked about with the vibe and characters. I just wish they put a little bit more of that small secret and Easter egg hunting into the game, because it really does feel like one of those titles where it's completely surrounded by Easter eggs and little secrets everywhere. It's not the biggest gripe in the world, and I do like the side content that's in the game. Bouldering is one of my favorite things in the game. But it is hard to ignore that something does kind of feel lacking. And lastly, the difficulty curve is questionable. It's really good up until the last 3 climbs, and if you honestly stop playing in the last 3 climbs, I can't blame you that much. Ymir's Shadow takes almost 2 hours to complete without using crampons, which is already an absolutely ridiculous amount of time for a single level, and that doesn't even go to show for things like Solemn Tempest and the Bulwark. The Bulwark takes around 2 hours as well, and Solemn Tempest took me 3 hours and half an hour just to beat on my first try with a single checkpoint. And it's not even a checkpoint, it's just a save point. It's not a complaint. Difficulty isn't really that, and for the most part, don't let this scare you off from playing the game, but it is really worth noting that, oh my goodness, dude, Solemn Tempest is an incredibly difficult level. Peaks of Yore is what happens when one idea takes form, when a concept of someone is fully realized. That's what I feel like Peaks of Yore is, and while I have kind of been glazing the game a little bit, I really do think it's worth picking up. It's only like $20 on Steam, and that's a pretty big steal for the content you're going to get out of it. Is it the best game I've ever played? No, but it's very well polished, and the idea that it was trying to do was done very well. The DLC retains basically all the quality of the original, and it's absolutely worth checking out if you're interested. Well, not even if you're interested, just to check out in general. I don't really have an outro. I didn't even write an outro. Yeah, I'll just end the video now.